Don't you forget about me.
Don't
forget about me.
Don't you forget about me. Don't forget about me. Such an iconic song from such an iconic movie. And here we are butchering it in front of all of you fans of Millennial Man Motions
Entertainment LLC. So we're not going to
sing anymore.
We're not going to sing any more of that. All right. Wow. So this is a very unique and it's a movie that,
as I said, it's an iconic movie.
And also just they don't really make other movies kind of like this anymore.
No, the Breakfast Club is it was the Brat Pack, as they called it back then, and I enjoyed it when it first came out. Saw it in the theater. I have it as part of my video library.
Oh wait, well let's start from the first part. What was it like seeing first theatrically on the big screen?
Oh well, look, it's like any movie. When you see it theatrically on a big screen, it just brings you in.
Brings you in that way,
right?
And
again, as I always talk about, you could have the greatest script in the world and the worst actors, and the script is not going to sell. It's not going to speak to you.
Unfortunately, a lot of movies have bad scripts.
Yes.
Now, after the theatrical way, you said on the home release. What kind of ways do you have it on the home way?
I have it on my iTunes library.
Oh, in an iTunes library. Okay.
My Apple library.
Okay. So how could we briefly summarize all the main classmate characters?
Just the way they do it in the movie. You have the nerd, you have I forget that now, all the terms they used for each one, but you have the princess, you have the loner, and each one had their own unique way, and it's the way they actually, the letter that Anthony Michael Hall's character writes, that he's supposed to say, how, who you are, so, and what you're about, and so as he narrates that last scene, that really classic last scene, and he talks about each one of them, and they basically own their characters and who they are as people, and that they all have value, ultimately in the end, and the fact that the Paul Gleason character, the principal, no matter what they do, he's always going to see them the way he wants to see them. And
that makes sense.
Yeah, and nothing they do is going to change his mind. And that spoke to a generation in the 80s especially, where, the young people of that generation were trying to be heard and trying to be seen I think we do that in every generation, but I think more so, again, that
So what I liked about
80s,
So what I liked about the story about all these kids together, the classmates, when they meet up there, they eventually, after a lot of talking, get to connect and build something.
One of the great moments in the movie is when they finally realize that they are connecting, and I think it's the Anthony Michael Hall character, Brian, I think is the character's name. Says, will we be friends after this? And they say, no, probably not.
Probably not.
This, event sort of galvanized them, but I think, to me, now I'm going to play the part of psychologist, right? And I'm going to say, I think there would be a nod and a wink in the hallway, right? Where, we're not going to acknowledge that we're friends, because I don't want to be called a geek by my athlete buddies. I don't want to be that, I think they would acknowledge that they know each other. And I think probably after high school they would become really close friends.
Really? Because I thought if that's how they responded, the more honest answer I heard you say is no, probably not.
Right, yeah, because of the pressures that they have, the peer pressure in high school. But I think so, and I'll tell you, it resonates with me because I was. So I'm going to ask you a question. Of all the characters, who do you think I resonated with most of the Breakfast Club? Do you think Judd Nelson's character, Emilio Estevez, Anthony Michael Hall, what's her name? What can I think of her name? Ali Sheedy, and oh my gosh, the princess. What was her?
That's a very put me on the spot type question.
Molly Ringwald.
It's a very put me on the spot type question. I don't know.
I'll tell you. Ali Sheedy.
And what was
she was the one. She didn't talk for a while. You know, she was just like all by herself doing her own thing. My favorite part is when they have their meal break, and she takes cereal, crushes it up, puts it on a piece of bread, and like everybody's like looking at her like, oh my god. Yeah, I sort of resonated with her the most because I was really in high school. I was sort of the outsider from everybody else.
Right.
But it was fine because I had my music. I had what I did. But this is it. We recently had a reunion, and everybody was like we were friends.
Right.
It was really cool.
Yeah, by the way, everybody, Rabbi is a really, really terrific musician. So he knows a lot about music. So it's nice.
Thank you. I appreciate that compliment.
Yes.
Anyway, so we
we
have the.
Sure.
Okay, I'm sorry. You want to set up?
No, the one thing I want to say real quick is that this is the type of movie where it just wouldn't work to have a sequel. This is like a standalone thing.
Oh
a sequel
my gosh,
would not work.
The closest this group ever had to a sequel was the other movies that they did together.
Right. That's about it.
That's about it. But they play totally different characters in these other movies.
Yeah.
So, But it's just that they work together a lot. It was sort of like. Again, they were named the Brat Pack after the Rat Pack of the earlier Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr., Dean Martin, all that group.
Oh, and everybody, I'm going to try to get Steve Sinatra back on the podcast hopefully soon. By the way.
Okay. Oh, okay. So anyway, the Breakfast Club works. I think in a lot of ways because the script was genuine. Even though the principal was sort of over the top, I think that the custodian.
Oh yeah, there's that custodian character, right?
Yeah, the custodian character sort of lends the sort of represents the calm adult that really sees the kids for who they are. Not the principal who's supposedly trained in education. It's the custodian who's trained in life.
No, you said you worked in the school district field. What else do you think the audience should know about how working in the school system was for you?
I rebelled against guys like the principal.
Okay.
As a teacher, even. I always had a little rebellious side in me, going against the grain, and so I really feel for these characters who are, trying to find themselves at an age when a lot of us try to find ourselves. So I really, I saw the movie with some older people, and they really, they had more sympathy for the principal than the kids. I had more sympathy for the kids than the principal.
And you said you had a somewhat recent reunion where everybody else was like, it was as if no time had passed?
Yeah, well, it wasn't like
no time had passed, but you guys still connected in some kind of way.
We connected really well, better than I think than I did with them when we were all younger. Yeah, it really was very different. I was greeted like a long lost hero. It was really very different, and I think. To me, I'm projecting onto these characters what happened to me, obviously.
Right.
But I think that as they became adults, I think they would connect better than they did with each of their peer groups.
Right. Because
of this intense moment that they were forced together into this situation.
Yeah. And when they were forced together, when they eventually started to connect and get to know each other, that's when they started to get to know each other. That's where it really started to get interesting there.
Right. Yeah. Okay. It was so. Each of them obviously had their own story. Some of it was pretty obvious. The Judd Nelson character, you sort of knew his background just from the way he was behaving, and. But some of the other characters, for instance, Emilio Estevez's character, You get to know that things were not a bed of roses for him either. Anthony Michael Hall's character, he feels the pressure of having to do well, and I actually knew students who crushed, they were crushed under the pressure of having to do well and literally took their lives.
Wow.
Yeah, they took their own lives. It's so sad. And then, as a teacher, I used to watch out for these signs, and sometimes, you'd miss it. And you see later on when, I taught in elementary school, and then later on you see the kids in high school, and they either, not all of them could handle the pressure of having to do well.
There's a lot of pressure at that age for people.
Oh yeah. Not only from peers. We talk about peer pressure all the time.
All kinds of pressure.
But pressure from parents, pressure from teachers,
right.
The expectations that one has, to be, to do and to be so well. So this movie sort of addressed all of those. The script really well written. The characters really well played. I mean, Paul Gleason, he always played a scumbag character.
He's in a lot of movies.
He was in Trading Places. He was the detective that was, quote, I say quote, the detective, right? Who stole the, but anyway, so yeah, he always played that kind of character. Hard ass scumbag.
Right, in most of the movies,
yeah. So.
But you so it's very important, like you said. It's got a script. The script is a well-made script.
Right.
And you said how they put all the characters together.
Yeah, and clearly, based on the look of the building, it was clearly an upper class, high school. Right. It didn't look like a city, high school. Even though they said it was like Chicago. I think it might have been a suburb.
Right. Now, with all the praise we're talking about this movie so far, does this movie have any weaknesses, any bad kind of parts?
It's funny. You asked me that question a lot about different movies, and I don't. That's not what I look for.
No, right. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I you know what? I think a couple of the scenes weren't necessary. For instance, the crawling through the ceiling. But only if to get Judd Nelson back into that storage room where he was exiled at one point.
So that scene like that could have been cut. What else?
The scene where the principal is peeking around the hallway, walking around the halls, and the kids are
with those parts there, would you say this is a 4 out of 5, a 4.5 out of 5?
4.5 out of 5. 4.5 out of 5? Yeah, it is. As I said, it's an iconic movie of the 80s. And, actually some of the stuff was stolen by, what's his name, from Family Guy. The guy, Seth MacFarlane. He stole that. The Simpsons stole stuff from that movie, and other movies use some of those tropes, but you could never make that movie again.
Just to keep this current, I don't watch The Simpsons anymore.
Yeah, neither do I.
But when I was online a lot, there was a certain spoiler about that show that came out, but I won't say. I'm like, oh my god, it's just out there like that.
Yeah.
I won't go. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, about The Simpsons?
About The Simpsons.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there was some new revelation. I hadn't watched it in a while, and it's a spoiler. I'm like, wow, okay. Anyway. But anyway, back to the Breakfast Club.
I think Simpsons is 18 years past its
Oh,
prime.
for sure, At least that, for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the Breakfast Club.
So this is an A is the 4.5, but an A.
It's an A.
It's kind of an A.
It's an A. You will walk away by what was it? What's the name of the movie with the a cappella singers? What's the name of the movie? Come on.
A-cappella singers?
Yeah, but there was all a cappella. You guys know the name of the movie. It escapes my brain.
Who's in it? Who's in it?
It's
trying to help you remember.
No, it's okay. It's they actually use that song. Don't forget about me.
Oh, they do. I'm not sure which one it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can't think. But you guys know. I don't need to. My memory is not so good right
now. What kind of an audience do you recommend this movie for? Could anybody relate to it, or some people might not feel so much?
I think obviously any young adult would relate to this movie. I think teens would still relate to this movie.
Like teens of today. I
Yeah,
think.
teens today.
Yeah,
I'm talking about teens, young adults. I don't, and obviously people of my generation who not grew up, but we were young adults during the 80s. You know, I was I don't want to say how. No, so I mean this is so. When we discuss movies of the 80s to me that's my wheelhouse, because that's when I was watching as a young adult. I was watching a lot of movies, going to the theater a lot.
What I like about 80s movies, it's like almost one of the last decade times where it's like, at the time it seemed like fresh and original material on all these different kind of movies.
You know what? Every generation would say that.
Oh, okay.
You know?
I could be wrong. I guess that's just an opinion.
No, it's just we don't, while we're in it, and this is my general commentary on art, literature, music, while we're in it, we view other stuff as maybe more innovative or classic or better in any way. And I don't think it's better or worse. I think, you know, we look back on it and go, wow, look at the innovation in, let's say, technology in music or art or movies or literature. Look at the innovation in terms of the stories that are being told. You know, I mean, you know, it used to be.
I thought it's like every movie there was more or less the same story, just being told in a slightly different way.
Well, and you can say that about a lot of movies, absolutely. But if we take the movie we're talking about today, The Breakfast Club, that story had not been told that way.
That's for sure. That is for sure.
Until that time.
That's for sure.
And that's why I say it's an iconic movie. Even as advanced and as wonderful as the Star Wars, Star Trek, the Steven Spielberg space movies, as innovative as they were really telling like a story like the old westerns.
Right.
You know.
Right. But then for The Breakfast Club, like you said, it's iconic. It wasn't told in this way before.
No,
These are all really great ways of explaining it.
Yeah, absolutely. So would I recommend everyone seeing it? Absolutely. And this is a movie you can share with anyone sitting in your living room eating popcorn and having a beverage of your choice, or if they were to re-release it and go to the theater, great movie to see in the theater. It works in any venue. I
think that the re-releasing, I think, is a good idea to have movie theaters bring people back, because people will, if they liked an older movie, they'll come out to go see that.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's pretty much our full, more or less thoughts on the Breakfast Club.
That's the take. Anna Kendrick. That's the movie with the acapella.
Oh, Pitch Perfect. Okay, there's three of those. Yeah, Pitch Perfect.
The first one, their final thing, they actually used the "Don't Forget About Me" as part of it.
Okay.
That was sort of the connection between her and the guy.
Got you.
All right. So
I hope everybody liked Rabbi's thoughts on the Breakfast Club. I think you explained it really pretty thoroughly, pretty well with all this. In our next movie podcast, we're going to be going over what we would consider one of the funniest, the funniest.
Again,
I'm not saying what it is.
Yeah, very innovative.
And a very, very innovative and funniest movie. Very innovative, fresh. Hugely hilarious movie in our next discussion coming up.
Right.
So with all that said, we'll see you at the movies, and everybody dance and have a good time. This is friend and co-host Rabbi and Millennial Man Motions Entertainment, LLC, signing out till one of the funniest comedies ever made.